Yeah, we're permanently cloaking with 6,000 weapon damage and 70% crit chance. What is going on? Hey guys, it's Dan, and welcome back to Unified Gaming. Now, in today's video, I'm going to share with you Shadow. Shadow is hands down my favourite PvP sniper on the Elder Scrolls Online. This Nightblade build has crazy sustain, so you can sneak around for free, permanently cloak, and you hit really hard even after all of the snipe nerfs. Now, if you have followed the build before in the past, I have changed the race, I've changed some of the sets, and I've changed the skills. So do follow along closely as I break this all down for you. And if you like what I do here and you're not subscribed, then make sure that you do subscribe, as I've got many more builds on the way. But with introductions out of the way, we're just going to jump straight to it. So race-wise, what are we? Well, in the past I was recommending an orc, but they have changed how an orc functions. As a dark elf, you get more stamina and you have equal weapon damage, which means dark elf is the hardest hitting race currently. This will change if patches change the races and stuff, but for the current patch, this is the best. Khajiit is really up there as well. Like, if you had to hit between the two, you couldn't cut it with a knife. It is that close. Dark elf is better when it doesn't crit. Khajiit is better when it crits. They are so similar, it doesn't make much difference. But these are the best races for it. And if you're not one of these races, I would highly suggest being one, as we really need to push our damage because we're still using Darlock. As with kind of our attributes, all of my points are in stamina. I then have the thief Mundus Stone, and I am a vampire stage 2. I get asked this quite a lot: can I play this without being a vampire? And the answer is no. You need to have access to the Darkstalker passive. This reduces your sneak time to get in there, which is great, so you can get in sneak really quick. But the big one is it ignores the movement speed penalty of sneak. That there is, it's a deal breaker, honestly. You really need this. On top of that, you also get strike from the shadows at stage 2, so this is really helpful. And if you want to go stage 3, you can also get undeath, which makes you tankier. I find sustain a little trickier, but with Darlock Barry, we can actually run this absolutely fine. So undeath is personal choice. If you're too squishy, run this, and this will really help fix it. I would not recommend going to stage 4 though, it's just not worth it. As with kind of our food and consumables, I'm using Bewitched Sugar Skulls. This is health, stamina, and magicka. It's one of the highest just stat dense food in the game. You also get health recovery, which is really useful, but it doesn't help massively, but it's just there. I'm using Tri-Stat Potions once more. If you know what I do, I recommend these every build because they're just so versatile. So get loads of these if you can. They don't have to be crown ones, and you might notice the gold says crazy amount of money. I don't have that much money. I'm actually quite poor on PCEU. So this is on the PTS where I'm making the build part, but all of the gameplay is on live with purple gear as I'm poor. So you can help me there if you want on PCEU. As with kind of the skills, things have changed. So do pay close attention, and I'm going to go through as best I can for both new and the previous people. So we're using Lethal Arrow, which gives us this really high damage. It also gives the poisonous status effect, which is really helpful. We then have Camouflage Hunter. This gives us major savagery, which is really nice, and Minor Berserk if we attack from behind, which increases our damage. It has to be a crit, but with having Shadowy Disguise, we can guarantee the crit anyway, so we can always have Minor Berserk. And a little tip for those people unaware: when the Minor Berserk procs, it actually gives the damage boost to the initial hit as well. So this is just free damage. You rarely cast this, in all honesty, it's just there as a passive boost. We then have Relentless Focus. This is really cool as it gives us loads of crit damage. It increases our healing too. And when we get it to 5 stacks, we can fire the Spectral Bow, which, if you can see the tooltip, is at 19,300. This hits really hard. So you can actually charge this up, then do Lethal Arrow, do Spectral Bow, and they almost land together. So it hits really hard. As you saw a minute ago, we are using Shadowy Disguise. This is the bread and butter. I would highly recommend this on the front bar just for ease of play, but you can move this to the back bar if you wish. I then have poison injection as my execute. This is a really useful skill, and what some people forget is that it actually has bonus damage when they're low health, and that applies to both the initial hit and also the dot. So this means that this can hit people for 4,000 to 7,000, which you can see in the gameplay is really helpful at range. And then for the ultimate, we're using Toxic Barrage, and this is just ridiculous. Like, this is honestly I win button. It's 77,000 damage over 4 seconds with a 37,000 dot almost over 8. And with 70% crit chance, we're critting all the time. So this really melts people. With Relentless Focus, you can change this. The one thing they changed with Snipe and with just Stealth recently is that when you attack from Cloak or from Sneak, you don't stun them if it's a range attack, which means you don't actually have a stun on this build. So if you want to get a stun, you can swap Relentless Focus for Magnum Shot or even Poison Injection. I would personally swap with Relentless Focus just because having Poison Injection is really helpful, but both are just, that's personal choice. The one thing to know though, that if you do this, you will lose out on the Hemorrhage passive, which increases your crit damage by 10%, and you also lose that minor savagery. So you do lose about 8% crit chance roughly, 6 to 8%, and you lose 10% crit damage. And with a really high crit chance, it is noticeable. So you can play around with these as you see fit. As for the back bar, it's much more straightforward. We're using Resolve and Vigor as I heal over time. Leech and Strikes, but this can be changed. Stated Fury, this is the Vampire toggle. I really like this. This really helps you get more damage. So this is good for tanky targets, and it heals us when it ends. Race Against Time, this is a must in my opinion. It's minor force, which is really hard to get in the game. It also gives us snare immunity, and it gives us major expedition, which means we can sneak really fast. We then have Rally, which is weapon damage, minor endurance, and a massive heal. So you really want Rally. And we have Temporal Regard as our ultimate just for minor protection, helping us stay a bit more bulky. If you don't have Temporal Regard, you can go down to the support skill line and unlock Barrier. This will give you Magicka Aid that will give you 10% Magicka regen. If you don't have access to Race Against Time, so Strategic Order, you can change Race Against Time to a skill of your choice, but there isn't anything there that's as good as that. So I would, if you can get it, if you can't get it, use Misform as plan B, just to on and off to get rid of the snares. One thing I will say with Leech and Strikes is you can drop this. You don't have to, but you can if you want. If you drop this, what I would suggest doing is putting Relentless Focus on the back bar, or you can to Mark Target and go down to Piercing Mark, which is really helpful. You can put this where that was instead. Either of these skills are great. Piercing Mark gives us loads of just penetration. You can also see invisible enemies if you mark them. So I normally do the combo, swap bar, Piercing Mark them if they're not dead. That way you can still hit them if they go in stealth. Alternatively, Relentless Focus can be kept here as a passive boost. As you do your light attacks on the back bar, it will build up the stacks, and the stacks carry over to the front bar. So that's really helpful. By doing this, you can then get on Magnum Shot on the front bar. You still lose the Hemorrhage passive, however. So to fix that, you can change your ultimate and go to Incap, using Incapacitating Strike, and that will fix all those issues. So there's lots of options here. So do you obviously rewind this, change it as you see fit. Stated Fury is personal choice. You don't need to run it, but you just can't attack as high health targets. So I would kind of have this if you can get it. But that there are the skills. A little bit more complicated, but I wanted to break it down as it's really important. Now for the sets, what are we doing? Well, if you like what I'm doing so far, you want to see more builds like this, then make sure that you do subscribe, as it really, really helps. And leave a comment. Let me know what you think of this. Is this balanced? Is it, do you expect these sets or not? So set-wise, what are we doing? Well, we're using Dial-Up Ray. I've said this earlier on, and I swear by this. We're using a sharpened bow. We then have Dial-Up Ray Battle Axe. This is for the crit healing with Precise. So this is great for heals. You could use Powered as well, or Defending, personal choice really. If you want, you can actually swap this for the Vatican Maul axe, whatever, and have this as just an extra proc, so it's 3 damage. But you don't have Dial Up Ray on both bars, so that's personal choice. For the monster sets, you have 2 options. I'm currently showing the non-mythic version. I'm using Ground Wolf and Slime Claw. You want Divines for all of it. My Slime Claw is not the right trait and it's not medium armor, so you want to change this if you can. These gives you lots of crit chance, which is great. This gives you crit chance, which is great. We then have Leviathan, which is really good. This comes from Vaults, the Crypt of Hearts, sorry. This is just crit, crit, crit. It's really high crit chance. We then pair this with Dial Up Ray. We have all infused jewelry. Now, this is what I found to be the hardest consistent hitting set up. You might be thinking, what about Swamp Raider, Archer's Mind, Scavenging Demise? I've tried all of those. Like, the amount of sets I've tried is ridiculous. I have tried Vicious Death, I've tried Acuity, Savara Scales, Red Mountain, Swamp Raider, to name a few sets there. Looked at Coward's Gear for a bit. I've tried so many sets, it's quite steady. I've also tried Balorg, tried Krog. If you want to have more initial damage and better stat pages, use one Krog, use one Balorg, you get nicer looking stat pages, but from experience, you actually have less damage. Most of our damage will come from critical chance, and our critical hits. So to really help that, you want to keep the crit chance as high as you can. It sounds silly, I know, but with using Dial Up Ray, we lose so much damage. Like, I tried so many setups to try and get this hitting really hard, even with Scavenging Demise or Red Mountain. You know, Red Mountain's got a 10k dot on it. When it's buffed up, Red Mountain's up to 12,700. Savara Scales, 8,900. Scavenging Demise, whatever that is, it's up here, I think it is. That's at 16,000. All of these just weren't enough to just add enough damage to just one-shot somebody, which means we need to have consistent damage. And from testing this, Leviathan actually came up with the best way to do that. You're consistently critting most of the time, and this will help you confirm kills. To help with that, I also use double dot poisons as well. So it means these are critting constantly because of what we're doing. So this is a really great setup. Now, one thing you can do, you can try Malakath. It's not worth it. So I know some people might suggest it, just don't, basically. You can use the Ring of the Wild Hunt. If you use Wild Hunt, so Malakath or Wild Hunt, you then drop 1 piece of the monster sets. This is why I left them as just 2 1 pieces. If you want to have proc sets, though, you can use a set called Cellatrix, I think it's pronounced. And when you do a damage, this will stun them. So you can use that, and that will give you a stun, which means you can drop Magnum Shot and run Relentless Focus. So there are lots of options for what you can do set-wise. But for me, I'd highly recommend build crit chance and Darlock, and you will have the best success that you can, even against people with Impen. I know it sounds counterintuitive. I know it seems really daft, like why wouldn't you use Spriggans? Why wouldn't you use even Scavenging Demise or Swamp Raider, for example? But in all honesty, this was more damage. You kind of have to try it to believe it almost. So that's what I'm going to suggest with the set. If you have any questions about what did I test or not, then let me know in the comments and I'll let you know exactly. But I tried so many things, like Archer's Mind as well. It's just, this was the best setup for me. As with the champion points, what we're doing here, well, I'm going to go through and just show you what we're using on each bar. So if the blue bar, I'm using Fight and Finesse, Master at Arms, Deadly Aim, and Untamed Aggression. Now, you can, if you really want, and I haven't slotted it, you can slot Backstabber. This is great for when you hit people from behind, so you get 15% crit damage, which is great. But if you compare it to things like Master at Arms, that's just 10% always. So I found this is more consistently useful. I also found that Untamed Aggression was really helpful, but you can use Wrathful Strikes for even more damage. Untamed Aggression, however, does buff your healing, so that's why I went this way. For the red ones, this is a more personal choice, but I would recommend using Bastion. Really unusual, I know. We don't have any shields, but it increases your damage to shielded targets. So when you go against sorcerers and any people using shields, this is a 15% damage boost against their shield. That's why we're using this. It really, really helps. We then have Juggernaut, which increases our mitigation when we get stunned. Really helpful. Rejuvenation for more sustain. This is kind of a personal choice. You can put armor for this, you can put whatever you like. Auto CC break maybe. And then Boundless Vitality for more health, because this really helps us get out that kind of one-shot execute range. And then for the green ones, I use Gifted Rider, War Mount, and Sustain in Shadows. All of these are quite useful in all honesty. You could choose to get Rationer as well if you want. Rationer is kind of one that you want to slot on when you need it, but not all the time. One thing to do get is over here, it's called Steed's Blessing. This works when you're not in combat, so this works for mounts, sneaking, and normal speed. But if you did this, I'd change out Rationer. So you got this, but when you eat your food, just put on Rationer once more, because it does apply it on consumption, not on like, the whole food cycle. So that's what I would suggest CP wise. But that there is the build. It's a little bit more complicated because we've changed a few things, actually a lot of the things. But let me know what you think of it. Do you like the idea of this? Are you going to make it yourself? I'd love to know if you make this and tell me how you do in the comments. That would really, really help. And if you have any questions, just leave a comment, as I said. Alternatively, you can join my Discord. There's like 800 people in there. So really chilled, really helpful, really relaxed. All the details are down below. But I'm going to actually wrap this video up here. I'm going to say a massive thank you to all of those Patreons and to every person who stayed this long. You know, without staying this long, without supporting on Patreon and stuff, I wouldn't be able to do this. So just a huge thank you to each and every one of you. And if you like what I do and you want to see more from myself, then make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss out. But I'm going to catch you in the next video. So thanks for watching, guys. Take care and bye.